Yeah, so let's start because it's already nine. Yeah, it's already time. So today we are very happy to have Davis Raval. Dr. Raval is the Deputy Director for Consumer Protection at the Federal Trade Commission. His main research interests are various topics in industrial organization with a focus in production technology, digital platforms, healthcare, and consumer protection. Dr. Raval has published in several leading peer-reviewed journals, including the Econometrica, the Review of Economic Studies, Marketing Science, and the Rand Journal of Economics, and the Review of Economics and Statistics. He also holds a patent for his work on econometrics. He has extensive experience in applying industrialization methods to real-world problems, first as a founding member of the economic team at Amazon, and now at America's premier antitrust and consumer protection regulator. At the FTC, he was awarded the Francis Walker Award in 2019 and the Outstanding Scholarship Award in 2020. Today, he's going to talk about his paper, Steering in One Click, Platform Self-Preferencing in the Amazon Buy Box. Yeah, Dr. Raval, the floor is yours, and you have 1 hour. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. First of all, so thank you all for inviting me, and thank you, Sangwoo, for organizing this. And second, please do interrupt if you have questions. So I did my PhD in Chicago, so there you would get nervous if people didn't interrupt you every few seconds with a question. So I'm happy to take any questions, and please do interrupt. So this paper is about platform self-preferencing on the Amazon Buy Box. So in a few slides, I'll go over and show you what the Amazon Buy Box looks like. But first, I want to talk about the different views of this kind of platform self-preferencing. So the first view is coming from, so this is the House Digital Markets Report. So this came out a couple years ago in 2020. And was a report, it's 400 pages long. It's looking at Google, Facebook, Amazon, and Apple, and all the different competition issues in digital markets. And the view of the report is that self-preferencing by major platforms can harm competition and competitors. So I'll just quote from the report. The report says, the company, so the company here is Amazon, the company's control over and reach across its many business lines enable it to self-preference and disadvantage competitors in ways that undermine free and fair competition. As a result of Amazon's dominance, other businesses are frequently beholden to Amazon for their success. Amazon's dual role as an operator of its marketplace that hosts third-party sellers and as a seller in the same marketplace creates an inherent conflict of interest. So the idea here is that the fact that Amazon, runs the platform, but also sells on that platform, also provides fulfillment services on the platform, creates these conflicts of interest. These are harming competitors and harming competition. Now, the Amazon's view of this, as you might expect, is very different. So this is our most recent space cadet, Jeff Bezos. And what Bezos says is that, all we care about is consumer welfare. We're designing this algorithm to be in the best interest of consumers. So this is actually coming, I believe, from congressional testimony where he was asked about the buy box, about self-preferencing. And he says, look, the buy box does favor products that were shipped with Prime. In general, the buy box is trying to pick the offer that we think customers would most like. It's going to include price, it's going to include speed, it's going to include whether it's Prime. But the main goal is let's optimize what consumers want. We're going to provide a default that's what consumers want. So this obviously is a very different view. Now, as you might expect, this kind of self-preferencing has come under a lot of regulatory scrutiny. So here in this talk, I'll talk a little bit about the EU. So I'll talk about now in the introduction, and I'll end with it as well, because there's been some new developments. But the EU Commission has been investigating Amazon for abuse of dominance with respect to the buy box and self-preferencing. So abuse of dominance in the US is very similar to the US term of monopolization, but the idea of abuse of dominance is that you're a dominant firm and you're somehow or another using that market power to undermine competition or competitors. So in the picture here is Margaret Vestager, who is the head of DG Comp in the EU. And you can see she's standing behind a presentation about antitrust and Amazon. And so she starts out saying, so these are remarks, I believe, of Margaret. So she says, the buy box is essential. Winning the buy box is crucial for sellers because more than 80% of transactions on Amazon are channeled through the buy box. So first of all, you have to win. But second, she says it's quite possible that Amazon has set rules that artificially favor its own retail offers, as well as the offers of sellers that use Amazon fulfillment. And we're worried that what Amazon is doing is forcing these third parties to use Amazon's own services and lock them into the Amazon ecosystem. So this was the logic behind why the EU Commission might be investigating Amazon for self-preferencing on the buy box. And as I said, at the end, I'll talk a bit about the conclusion of that investigation. So let me get to what this paper is going to do. So in this paper, I'm going to examine self-preferencing on the Amazon buy box. So in particular, I'm going to try to examine the buy box algorithm and try to essentially estimate what the buy box algorithm is doing. And then I'll try to estimate how much Amazon is favoring itself. And so here Amazon is wearing, as I said, multiple hats. So Amazon is the platform, Amazon is the retail business, and then Amazon is providing fulfillment services to third parties. So I'm going to try to estimate how much is Amazon favoring itself as the retail business, and how much is Amazon favoring itself as the fulfillment business. And then lastly, I'll do some counterfactuals. So these are going to hold a lot of things fixed, but the idea is to get a sense of what the algorithm is doing and how much the steering is going to affect who wins the buy box, as well as the default prices that consumers see on Amazon.
Can I ask you one question, small question?
Sure.
So you're looking at Amazon first-party retail business, not the private brand exclusively, right?
So here, I'll talk about sampling later, but I'm looking at, broadly speaking, all the products in a category. So those may include Amazon private labels to the extent they're part of the product sold, right? So if it is an Amazon private label, then presumably Amazon would be the only competitor. So this kind of algorithm is not interesting because Amazon is going to be selling its own private label. But those will be included in the set of products. And they're actually, I don't have statistics for you, but there are several Amazon private labels. Amazon Basics is probably the most famous, but they had several others. So to the extent those exist, those would be parts of the business where this algorithm is not going to matter because Amazon is going to be the only seller, so it's going to win.
So when you say the retail business, is like it includes the third-party products, but through Amazon retail, Amazon as a retailer, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. That's right. So actually, maybe I'll just go to the next slide. I think this may help. So there are three main types of sellers. The first is Amazon retail. So here, when I say Amazon retail, they're different vendors, manufacturers that are selling products to Amazon. Amazon is then selling it on its own account on its website. So you're buying from Amazon and Amazon is fulfilling its own orders. So to your question, the Amazon private label is going to be part of Amazon retail, but it's going to include lots of other products where, a manufacturer is selling to Amazon and then Amazon is selling it on its website. So that's the first party piece. And this used to be, if you go back 20 years or something, this was the only part of Amazon. Amazon was a platform that sold, fulfilled itself, and that was it. At some point in the 2000s, Amazon started allowing third-party sellers. And here now, there are multiple ways that you can sell as a third party. So here you're an independent merchant, you're selling on the marketplace. you could do what's called fulfilled by merchant, which is the middle row, which is you're selling the product, you're also fulfilling the product, you're doing the shipping yourself. And in that case, Amazon just takes a percentage of revenue, so typically 15%. And otherwise the merchant is the one you're buying from, the merchant's the one that's doing the shipping. The category that has grown a lot in the past 10 to 15 years has been fulfilled by Amazon. So fulfilled by Amazon, you are buying as a consumer from the merchant, but Amazon is doing the shipping. So here, the products are in an Amazon warehouse, they're being shipped to you in Amazon boxes by Amazon. And if you're a Prime member, so many of you maybe know that Amazon has this loyalty program called Prime that gives, free, once you're a member of the program, you get free due-day shipping. If you're buying from Amazon directly or fulfilled by Amazon, you get the free due-day shipping. If you're buying fulfilled by a merchant, where the merchant does the shipping, you don't get that fast shipping. Now there's a last category. So I said that there are 3 main types of sellers, but in this graph there are 4. So the last one is seller fulfilled Prime. So this was a project where the merchant could, if it met some metrics, do the fulfillment itself, but still get the Prime badge, which means that it's shipping in the 2-day speed with a guaranteed delivery date. This is something that Amazon started, was extremely successful, but almost too successful, because a lot of merchants were switching from fulfilling by Amazon, where Amazon is doing the shipping, to doing it themselves and still getting the Prime badge. And so Amazon, 3 years ago or so, sharply restricted the program to make it almost impossible to get in. And so at the time of my sample period, it's not really an important part of the marketplace. So in particular, I think they required you to be able to ship every day, including the weekend, and ship, within the 1 or 2 day period across the entire country, and a bunch of other restrictions that basically meant, that the third parties weren't able to do it. So you should think about it. In this paper, there are really 3 types of sellers. There's Amazon retail, first party. There's third party fulfilled by Amazon, where Amazon is doing the shipping. And then there's third party fulfilled by a merchant, where the merchant is doing the shipping.
Hi, Davish.
Yeah.
Can I ask one clarifying question regarding the buy box? So within the buy box, if I understand correctly, so basically the competition of the same product, but sold by different sellers.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so that's why you just mentioned that if it's a private label, then they are going to be only Amazon as a sole seller.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. At least as a new product, Amazon would be I think the only seller.
So in that case, there will be no self-preferencing, right?
There'd be no self-preferencing at this stage of you're on the product detail page. So I'm actually going to show you product detail page in a second.
Okay.
But you could think of there's a funnel, so there may be one stage when I'm searching for products and comparing different products. And then there's a second stage when I'm looking at a product and deciding who to buy from for that product. So this paper is all about the bottom of the funnel of I've already picked a product and I'm deciding who to buy from. So you could imagine Amazon preferencing on the search part. That's not a part of this paper, but I think there are papers finding that Amazon does do some preferencing on the search part.
Okay.
For its private label. So this is a product detail page. So I realized that China is probably the only major economy where Amazon is not dominant and Amazon failed. So you may not be as familiar with Amazon's website as most of the places I presented. So this is a detail page for some kind of Japanese video game. So in the red box, you see the price, which is $25.10, and it says it's in stock. And it's probably hard to see, but at the very bottom of the red box, it says shipped from and sold by Amazon.com. But that's not something, it's not clear if consumers even see that. The green box to the right is the buy box. So here, you can click in orange and add to cart. You can click in yellow and just buy now. And at the top, it says it's free delivery, I guess for Tuesday, March 9th. This is an old screenshot. But so in the buy box, it's telling you here the price is $25.10, you can buy now, but that is the default product. And in this case, the default product from Amazon. But if you click in the blue box there, you can actually see that there's 22 new or used products of different prices. So if you click through, what you find is that Amazon is actually not at the lowest price. So here, Amazon's price is $25.10, but there is a third-party fulfilled by merchant that is $24.97. So that's in blue. And then in green, there's a third-party fulfilled by Amazon that's $24.99 that also is, shipping for the same day. So here you could have saved a few cents if you didn't buy from Amazon. So Amazon here is the default seller, but it's not the lowest price. Both the blue and the green are lower prices, and the green in particular it both has the same shipping time, and is a few cents cheaper. Now it's also the case that there's not always a buy box winner. So this is a case, this is some kind of tire sealant. And here, if you look in the red box, there's not, so first of all, you look in the green box, that's the buy box, there is no like buy now button or add to cart button. And in the red box, it says it's available from these sellers, but there's not a default seller. But if you click through, what you find is that there are a bunch of sellers here. So in particular, in green, there is a fulfilled by Amazon Prime seller for $29.99, sold by a third party. But for some reason, Amazon is not allowed a default here. So you should think of, there's potentially two types of self-preferencing here. The first is that Amazon might put its own offer above third parties, or put third party fulfilled by Amazon above other third parties. But second, they can close the buy box, and so there's no default. And here, again, like you can click through and buy this, but a lot of consumers may not realize that this is actually available for sale, because they're used to just clicking in the one-click button. So this paper is going to be about the buy box algorithm. So you should think of this as a black box. Amazon itself doesn't tell you much about what this algorithm is, other than lower price is better, being in stock is better, and so on. But there are third parties that try to advise sellers about what to do. So this here is a buy box cheat sheet from a third party that tries to advise sellers. And so they put a whole bunch of metrics and they say what they think is the most important. And by far the most important is the fulfillment method. Its impact is very high above all the others. And here, to win the buy box, you want to be fulfilled by Amazon or the seller fulfilled Prime, which I told you basically dropped away. So this is already telling you that this kind of self-preferencing of being fulfilled by Amazon is super important, and probably the most important thing for the buy box. After that are things like the price, whether it's in stock or not, shipping time, and then there are a bunch of other metrics that are about shipping quality, and then there's also the number of feedback ratings and the feedback count. So this gets you a sense of what Amazon is doing. Price matters, quality matters of the seller, but the most important thing is how you do the fulfillment. So what I'm going to do in this paper is, first of all, get data on both on lots of products, the different offers of the products, as well as who won, to try to get a sense of what this algorithm is doing. So here I'm going to collect samples of products for different categories. So you should think of a market here as a country category level. So think of, like, say, for example, US home goods. So I'm going to start with the top 500,000 ASINs by sales rank. So ASIN here is Amazon's version of a UPC, or a unique product code. So I'm going to start with the top 500,000 ASINs by sales rank. And then I'm going to collect a 10,000 product sample. So I'm going to sample all of the top 5,000 ASINs. So this is the head. But then I'm going to take 2,500 in the category below, of 5,000 to 25,000 by sales rank, and 2,500 of those that are greater than 25,000 by sales rank. So the idea is to get a sense of what the head looks like, as well as what the long tail looks like. So what you tend to find is that the head products that have high sales tend to be quite competitive with lots of offers, whereas the tail products, often there may be just one or two offers. So I want to make sure I've got, I'm using this sample to make sure I have collections of both. So as I said, I'm going to sample across categories and countries. So the primary sample I'm going to look at in this paper is looking at 18 categories, and then looking at the US, UK, Germany, and France. So that's the primary sample. But I also look at a secondary sample where I have, for 6 categories, I look at Japan, Canada, Italy, Spain, and Mexico. And go ahead.
Can you go back one slide?
Sure.
Yeah, here, in terms of sample construction, I was wondering which type of product where the Amazon enters. They enter all those products, or they basically enter the mass product, which is the top 5,000?
That's a great question. I don't have statistics on the top off the top of my head for you, though. That's something I can look at.
Yeah, I think there are some trade-off, because for the very top mass product, then there should already be many kind of established sellers, so the competition will tend to be high. But in the niche products, market very small, so maybe there's some trade-off for Amazon to enter the market, and then that will affect the effect you're gonna identify later on.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I don't have statistics off the top of the head for you, but I think Amazon is generally going to be, I think its share is going to be higher in the top products than the rest. But that's also probably going to vary by product category. So in something like books, Amazon might have a large share in the tail as well as the head, whereas in something like automotive parts or home goods, a lot of the tail products Amazon may not be selling. But that's a great question. I should know the answer to that.
Okay. Yeah. Can I also ask some question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, before, I'm not sure whether you're going to talk about quality or not, but before we look at whether it actually self-preference or not, for the private brand, I can understand. Yeah, even if there's some self-preferencing, I can understand the mechanism how private brands will, Amazon entering the private brand will harm the third-party sellers the manufacturers, other manufacturers, maybe because they can drive out the manufacturers. But for the retailer business, first seller business, the first seller, the retailer. So if Amazon self-preferencing it, let's say Amazon self-preferenced it, then who's going to be harmed? Then
yeah, so that's a great question. So I think there's 2 answers to that, depending on the kind of self-preferencing. So if it's simply Amazon, go ahead.
yeah, let's just suppose that Amazon self-preferenced it, then obviously it's gonna harm retailers. I mean, the third-party retailers, but for manufacturers, it's actually kind of the same. I'm not sure how obviously not exactly the same, but it's not going to have that much effect on manufacturer. Also, maybe it can be good for consumer, bad for consumer. I'm not sure, but so the obvious the sector is going to be harmed will be, I think, the third-party retailers, and but I'm not sure how bad it will be for society, even though that is the case.
Yeah, so let me address that. So there are two types of self-preferencing here, and I think the answers are different by the type of self-preferencing. So in terms of Amazon preferencing its retail offer, there what's happening is, I find a product and I'm buying from Amazon instead of buying from a third party. So I think a lot of the harm there, so first of all, that is going to kind of squeeze the third party margins. And so that, as you said, it is going to hurt the third parties. But you may also imagine that might hurt discovery on the platform, because I'm a third party seller. It takes some time and effort to find good products, say manufacturers that aren't normally selling in the US. If Amazon can come in and contract with the same manufacturer and basically win, they may enter the places where, like, I've spent the time and effort to find the product, and as soon as it succeeds, Amazon comes in and takes the market. So that could be one type of harm for society, of there's not enough discovery of products because the incentives are weak, because if you succeed, then Amazon comes in. I think a lot of the harm, and I'll show you this later on, is about preferencing Amazon fulfillment over third parties doing fulfillment. And so there, what this is that there's a big preference, as I'll show you, for either third parties or Amazon using Amazon fulfillment. And there's not a way for third parties to get the Prime right now, really get the Prime badge using third-party delivery services or to advertise those. And so there's a worry that there's a market for delivery that's being, in some sense, monopolized by Amazon. So, if I want to reach consumers in the US, you really need the Prime badge and to give 2-day shipping, because that's what people, most consumers in the US are on Prime. They want the shipping. The only way to do that at present is to use Amazon fulfillment. And so that means that Amazon fulfillment, so Amazon shipping delivery service, is taking that market. And I think in the absence of that kind of self-preferencing and with the different choice architecture, you could imagine third parties like UPS or FedEx or others, DHL, winning that market and having a more competitive market there. And second, so that's one piece of the harm, is a less competitive, there's not a competitive delivery fulfillment market. I think the second piece of that is that what this does is incentivize all the sellers to put all of their product in Amazon warehouses where the shipping is done by Amazon. And it may be hard once you do that to then also list those products on other sellers, other platforms like eBay or Walmart or others. So there, in a sense, it's locking up the sellers. So just to get back to what Margaret Vestager said, this may be locking sellers into Amazon's ecosystem. So here the worry is that these sellers are putting everything in the Amazon warehouse, they're using Amazon fulfillment. Now it's much harder to sell stuff on eBay or Walmart if they're offering lower fees. So I think it's a worry that's reducing competition in the platform market. So this is something I know Amazon recently announced ways of doing that, in part because of all the regulatory scrutiny. So you should think of that as there's a potentially harm in the fulfillment market, but there's also potential harm in the platform market.
Yeah, I don't want to take up so much of your time. Just want to make a comment. But I think I kind of disagree what you said about that those ultimate harm Amazon retailer can drive out, maybe can lock all the third-party sellers to supply through the Amazon retailer, because Amazon I guess would never want to do that, because you know that from their retailer business, most of the money they're getting is like from third-party sellers, not from retailer, because they can charge like a fees, they can charge advertisements. So I can't think of they have any incentive to drive out all the third-party sellers.
No, so,
Yeah,
so I'll actually show you when I get to the results.
yeah,
What you
yeah,
do
yeah.
find is that the preferencing of Amazon retail is much smaller and doesn't really affect what happens on the platform much. But the preferencing of fulfillment is a really big deal, which I think is quite consistent with your comment.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
And then maybe I'll just rephrase what you said of, could be Amazon makes money by selling directly to consumers and its, price is significantly above its cost, but it can also make money by letting third parties do that and then taking fees and taking a revenue share and taking advertising. So it may not matter to Amazon where it gets its fees. On the other hand, I think it does matter a lot to Amazon, both that the sellers are on Amazon's platform and that the sellers are subsidizing Amazon's fulfillment network. So let me, I've got about a half an hour left. So let me show you the categories very quickly. So a lot of categories here. The main things I want to stress is I tried to pick almost all of the major categories. There's a big difference between media categories like books, CDs, DVDs, video games, and non-media categories. So I tried to make sure I had media type categories. I have hard lines, so things like electronics or tools, and also some consumables like beauty and personal care and so on. But the primary sample has about 800,000 products and 3.5 million offers. And if you include the other countries, it's about 1 million products and 4.4 million offers. So I'm going to have data. So this is coming from an API from Keepa. I'm going to have data on most of the characteristics. So at the offer level, I have the price, I have the shipping cost, if there's a separate shipping cost. I know the seller type, whether it's Amazon, FBA, or FBM, so fulfilled by Amazon, fulfilled by merchant. I know whether it's in stock and immediately shippable, and I know the buy box winner. At the seller level, I know the number of lifetime feedbacks and the average rating. So these are the main characteristics of the quality of the seller that are observable to consumers. And at the product level, I know the average buy box and some other characteristics of the product. Now, the main data I'm missing is data on shipping time and quality. So in terms of shipping time, there are really two types of shipping time. There's Amazon fulfillment and third-party merchant. So Amazon fulfillment is going to be similar for Amazon and FBA. It's going to be about 2 days and a guaranteed date. So you should think of Amazon and FBA as essentially having the same shipping time. The third parties tend to have both a longer shipping time as well as a more variable range. So this would be, from the graph I showed you here, like the Amazon offer says March 9th, the FBA offer says March 9th, the third party offer says March 15 to 19. So I'm missing that, and that's going to caveat some of the results on fulfilled by merchant. I'm also missing shipping quality. So that's something that Amazon can observe, but I can't. But that's really only going to affect, again, the fulfilled by merchant offers, because Amazon and FBA are going to have the same shipping quality. So I'm going to first show you some descriptive statistics about the data, and then I'll get to estimating the algorithm. So first of all, I look at the number of offers. So here, the x-axis is the number of offers from 0 to 8 or from 1 to 8. The categories are the different categories where the media categories are in general at the top. The red dots are the median by category and the blue dots are the average. And so what you see is for most of the categories, the median product has 1 offer and the average has about 2 offers. And again, that's going to be different between the tail and the head. The tail is going to have a lot of, there's only 1 offer. The head is going to be more competitive. What you find is that media is quite different. In the media categories, you see a lot more offers. So for example, here, for DVDs, the median DVD has 3 offers, the average has 4. For books, the median book has 5 offers, the average is above 7. So the media categories are a lot more competitive with a lot more offers. Second is that, here I'm going to look at who wins the buy box, the share of who wins. In red is whether Amazon retail wins, and in blue is Amazon retail plus FBA. So again, this is average across everything, whether or not there are multiple offers. So in general, you see for most of the categories, Amazon is winning about 10 to 20% of the time. So it's not always the winner. In fact, it's typically not the winner, although it may not be, to earlier questions, it may not be having an offer for those products at all. But Amazon plus FBA is winning about 25 to 50% of the time. Now you see the media categories to be quite different. So I'll just highlight books, because books is very different than the rest. For books, you see Amazon is winning almost 80% of the time, and FBA is a very small share. So books looks quite different than the rest. And it's quite notable both because books is where Amazon started. So it was originally a bookseller before expanding to all these other categories. And it's also likely where Amazon has the most market power. And you see with CDs and DVDs, again, somewhat higher shares at either Amazon or Amazon plus FBA are winning. Now this graph is looking, go ahead.
Davish, can you go back 1 slide?
Yeah.
So here, the shares that Amazon plus FBA won in that category, it's not that high. Basically, I think if you combine this with your previous graph, it seems to be the fact that there's an equal chance for Amazon to win and other sellers to win, because on average, those type of category will have 2 sellers, right?
So you have to be careful here, because this is not conditional on having an Amazon offer. I should actually include that because I have that graph, although it's not in this slide deck. The Amazon is going to win a lot more. The Amazon's likelihood of winning is going to be much higher conditional on having an offer. So this is all unconditional.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This is just to show you sort of what the categories look like. So here is the share. The winner is not the lowest price. So in general, for all products, so red is all products, blue is products with multiple offers. So you see, in general, the winner is not the lowest price about 5 to 10% of the time. But if there are multiple offers, the winner is not the lowest price, more like 20% of the time. In something like books or DVDs, CDs, this is closer to 30%. So typically the default is the lowest price, but in areas where there are a lot of competitive offers, it's often the case that the winner is not the lowest price. And finally here, I'm going to show you the percentage price difference if the winner is not the lowest price. So red is the median and blue is the average. So at median, the difference is small, it's about 2%. But there are some large differences. So the average is more like 10%. So this is just to show you, if you just summarize all of this, the last two graphs, in a competitive market where there are multiple offers, probably at least 20% of the time, there'll be a cheaper offer than the buy box default. And there'll be a price difference, although it'll be small, so 2% at median and maybe 5 to 10% on average. So now let me get to the identification strategy of trying to identify self-preferencing. So this is to get exactly at your question of, here I've just shown you descriptive statistics. And so these aren't showing you markets where Amazon is competing head-to-head with third parties, or Fulfilled by Amazon is competing head-to-head for Fulfilled by Merchant. So the way I'm going to treat this is I'm going to treat the offer as a bundle of characteristics. And then I'm going to predict the buy box winner from the different offers and compare Amazon to a perfect seller. So when I show you price premium, it's going to be comparing Amazon to a perfect seller. So here, a perfect seller is going to be 1 million feedbacks and 100% rating. So the characteristics I have are going to be price. So here, price is going to be compared to the average buy box price. The seller type, so whether it's Amazon, FBA, or FBM, whether the product is immediately shippable, measures of the quality of the seller, so in particular the number of feedbacks and the average seller rating, and I allow those to vary between whether it's Fulfilled by Amazon or Fulfilled by Merchant. And then there's going to be an outside option, which is that there's no winner at all. Now I'm going to depict these estimates as a premium over Amazon retail. So I'm going to just normalize the seller types using the price. It's going to be a price premium. So you should think of this as, so I'm going to be comparing Amazon to a perfect seller with 1 million feedbacks and 100% rating. So the kind of thing I'm going to show you is going to be, Amazon retail, being Amazon retail is like a 15% price premium, is worth a 15% price premium over a perfect seller Amazon FBA offer. So that's the kind of thing I'm going to show you. So here I'm going to estimate a multinomial logit. So I put it up here, but this is going to be a standard multinomial logit. This is something I'm working to potentially relax, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So I get actually pretty similar estimates across countries, but I'm going to just start with what I get in general, combining the US, UK, Germany, and France. So first of all of these estimates make sense. So having a higher price is bad for winning the buy box. In general, Amazon wants a winner, so having an offer is good. FBA and FBM are negatively weighted compared to Amazon retail, but FBM is much worse than FBA. So Amazon prefers a Fulfilled by Amazon offer to a Fulfilled by Merchant offer. Being immediately shippable is good. And in general, having more feedbacks and having more ratings is good. Although it seems like more ratings matters more for Fulfilled by Merchant, and more feedbacks matters more for Fulfilled by Amazon. Now let me just translate a few of these because I realized that it's hard to interpret multinomial logit estimates. But you should think of, so normalizing relative to price, being in stock, so immediately shippable, is like a 16%, is like a 16% decrease in price. Moving the number of feedbacks from 1,000 to 100,000 is like a 5% decrease in price for FBA, a 3.5% decrease in price for FBM. Moving your rating from 80% to 100%, so that's basically the distribution, because there are not many sellers that have below an 80% rating. So going from 80% to 100% is like a 1.5% decrease in price for FBA, 2.5% decrease in price for FBM. But then finally, the main interest in this paper is looking at the self-preferencing relative to FBA and FBM. So what I find is that Amazon retail is about a 16% price premium above a perfect seller FBA and a 46% price premium over a perfect seller FBM. So these are pretty large. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have one question regarding the this model, because there are still maybe some like unobserved characteristics, right? So in that, if there are some uncontrolled like characteristics, then maybe Amazon have a quality advantage in those unobserved stuff, right? So in that case, it's hard to argue that whether Amazon is always like have a higher chance to be in the buy box.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I think the main things that are missing are shipping time and shipping quality.
Yeah.
So those are not going to affect Amazon over FB compared to FBA, because they're going to have, because Amazon is doing the shipping in both cases, they're going to have, roughly speaking, they're going to have the same shipping quality and, roughly speaking, the same shipping time. It is going to be true with FBM, the fulfilled by merchant, because with the merchants doing their own shipping, they're both going to have worse shipping time, which at present is not something I can control for, but I'm trying to work on finding a data set where I have the shipping times as well. And the shipping quality is going to be more variable. So that I don't have this here, but I can try to do things like look at, control for whether the seller has ever won the buy box. So that might control for some of what Amazon thinks is maybe not good enough to compete or not. But in general, outside of Amazon internal data, it'd be hard to get data on shipping quality. Shipping time is something I think, I'm hoping to be able to get for a future version of this draft.
Yeah, I think even if you can get the data on shipping time and shipping quality, and also there are still some like brand, this marketing literature, there's still some brand value where consumer just maybe derive a higher utility from buying Amazon own product. Is that something?
So I think that gets to kind of the beginning couple slides. So I think you can rationalize any self-preferencing as consumers prefer buying from Amazon. Right. I think there's not really any way to rule that out with this type of data. Especially it's hard for a lot of consumers are not necessarily going to know. I think that also is going to be different between Amazon versus and FBA versus FBM. So when you buy from, even if you buy an FBA offer, it's going to show up in an Amazon box with Amazon labeling. And so from a consumer's point of view, it may be the same as buying from Amazon. Whereas the fulfilled by merchant, they're doing their own shipping, so it's going to seem a lot more like you're buying from someone else. But I take your point. I think you can argue that these effects are consumers like buying from Amazon, and so that's that's what's driving it. And it's with the type of data I have here, I don't think you can test for that.
Okay.
So I'll go quickly through this, but you get pretty similar signs and magnitudes if you look across the countries. So US, Germany, UK, Germany, and France. The premium over FBA is ranging from 10% to 15% across the countries. And the premium from FBM is going from, roughly speaking, 30% to 50%. So the FBM premium is a bit higher for the US than for the other countries. But in general, these results are relatively similar. So now I'm going to go to, and give me 1 second. So this is the main graph of the paper. So here I've depicted on the x-axis the price premium. So this is Amazon retail, where third party. In red is FBA, in blue is FBM. And then the y-axis is different categories. So this again is the price premium of Amazon retail over the third party. So if you look at FBA, what you find is that in general, so the red vertical line is the is if you include all the categories together, the blue vertical for FBA, the blue vertical line is the same for FBM. So what you find is that if you look at most of the categories, Amazon's premium FBA is roughly speaking 15 to 25% in price. There's only one category, autos, where it's close to zero. And the premium FBM is larger for in all cases, and is roughly speaking 25 to 50%. So these are large, and they're true across the categories. There's one big exception, which is books. So for books, you see a much larger premium of Amazon retail over third-party FBA. It's over 50%. And for FBM, it's even larger. It's over 150%. So it's again, way different than all the other categories. Looking into this, it seems like for UK books, Amazon always wins. So the third parties never win, which is part of what's driving this. But I think it shows you that, Amazon is changing its algorithm by category, but books is the place where arguably Amazon has the most market power, and it does seem like they have much higher price premium for books than others. So to get to your question, I think it's definitely true that there are going to be unobserved factors that are in this, that are not included in the model. But it'd be hard to argue that books would be the place that would have different versions of that relative to the other categories. Now, I've done a version excluding the closed buy box, and the results are quite similar. They're about maybe a third smaller. So this is just looking at products where there is a buy box winner. It looks almost the same, it just, the results fall by a third. And then finally, if I look across countries, so this is looking at the same 6 categories across all the countries in the sample, you get pretty similar price premia for FBA across categories. They're a little bit more scattered for FBM, but again, you see estimates roughly speaking between 10 to 20% for Amazon over FBA, 25 to 100% for Amazon over FBM. And I've got about 10 minutes left. So talk quickly about predictive quality. So this model predicts well. So here in red is all products, blue is products with multiple offers, and it's a share correctly predicted by category. So in general, this model is predicting about 90% of the winners correctly for all products, about 80% across categories. Or sorry, 80% for products with multiple offers. So these are products where there is a choice. Now I've looked more deeply into what it does badly at, and the part that it does really badly at is where there's no winner. It's very hard for the model to predict when Amazon closes the buy box where there's no winner. And I think the reason is, so there are other papers on this. There's a bunch of regulatory concern about Amazon closing the buy box if a seller sells on a lower price on another platform, or the product is being sold for a lower price on another platform. That's not something that's in this model. I don't have data on other platforms, but that's probably why the model doesn't do well for that, is that, to get to your question about unobserved characteristics, one unobserved characteristic is whether the product is being sold lower on another platform. That's really just going to affect whether there's a winner or not, but that's not something I have data on. Now I want to look in the last 5 minutes about counterfactuals, removing self-preferencing. So I'm going to look at 2 counterfactuals. First is Amazon retail, where I'm equating Amazon retail to a perfect FBA seller. So this would be Amazon retail and a perfect FBA seller have the same likelihood of winning. The second counterfactual is equating Amazon retail, a perfect FBA, and a perfect FBM seller. So there they would all have the same likelihood of winning. So I want to be clear here, this is holding a lot of things fixed. Like I'm not allowing prices to change or the offers to change. So you should think of this as more trying to get a sense of where the algorithm matters, where it doesn't. So what I find is that the biggest changes are from removing the fulfillment preferences. So here, the second column is the perfect FBA counterfactual. The third column is the perfect FBM counterfactual. If you equate Amazon to perfect FBA seller, not that much changes. Amazon's share of the buy box falls by about 0.5%, but Amazon plus FBA share goes up by about 0.5%. So you should think of, when you do this, FBA is displacing Amazon, but FBA is also displacing fulfilled by merchant. And so in general, prices go up a little bit on the platform, but they fall a little bit when Amazon was the default seller, was the baseline winner under the self-preferencing. But again, this is like, 0.1% decline in price when Amazon would have won before. So it's quite small. There are huge changes when you equate Amazon to a perfect FBM seller. So Amazon's share of the buy box falls by 7%. Amazon plus FBA share of the buy box falls by 10%. In general, the buy box price falls by more than 0.5%. And when Amazon was the baseline winner, the price is falling by 2%. So you should think of this as the two types of self-preferencing, but the one that really matters in terms of who wins is the preference for Amazon fulfillment over merchant fulfillment.
So in this case, you also controlled shipping time and quality, right?
So here again, like that is something that is missing because I don't have controls for that. So that is going to affect the counterfactual of Amazon over FBM. So again, to the earlier points, it could be that consumers are worse off here because the default seller is a lower price, but they're also getting worse shipping. That's right. Okay. But I want to show you, so this is a graph of the changes when you remove fulfillment preferencing. So here, the x-axis is the share, red is the share of Amazon retail, blue is the share of Amazon retail plus FBA. And you find large changes in all the categories, but the biggest changes are in books and CDs, where the share of Amazon retail or Amazon retail plus FBA are going down by 30%. But in general, you find relatively large changes across all the categories. So you should think of this as the fulfillment preferencing matters a lot. So the Amazon retail compared to FBA is more like a tiebreaker, but it's not really changing the price you see or who you're buying from, but the fulfillment preferencing matters a lot. So I've got a minute left, so I just want to talk very briefly about policy levers. So you can think of 3 policy levers. One is platform regulation, so putting restrictions on what the algorithm does. I think this might be hard to do because, as we talked about, you need to know exactly you need to sort of have a sense of how much is self-preferencing versus what consumers value, which is hard to know for a regulator. The second is structural separation. So this is what Lena Khan argues in multiple law review articles. So here, if you break up Amazon into a fulfillment piece and a platform piece and a retail piece, there'd be no reason for the algorithm to self-preference because the incentives would be aligned, but there'd be a lot of disefficiencies from eliminating vertical integration. So things like elimination of double marginalization would go away. And lastly would be changes in the user interface that make it easier for consumers to see multiple offers and choose between the multiple offers. So the EU Commission, just getting back to what I talked about earlier, the EU Commission preliminary found that Amazon was self-preferencing and that this was a problem. And so Amazon recently settled this by changing its platform rules. So Amazon gave an offer, I believe, in the summer, and the EU accepted it with some conditions. But in particular, Amazon now in the EU is going to be required to provide equal treatment to all sellers when ranking their offers in terms of who wins the buy box. So this is elimination of self-preferencing. And second, they're going to have to change their user interface to show a second competing offer to the buy box winner, as long as there's one that's sufficiently different than the winner. So they're really taking two pieces. One is the changing the algorithm to remove self-preferencing. The other one is changing the user interface so the consumers can see multiple offers. What's not on this slide, they're also making it easier for third-party delivery services to get the prime offer, which again is essentially changing the algorithm to not penalize third-party delivery services. So with that, I think I'm out of time. So thank you very much for all of your attention, and I hope this was useful.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wonder if there are any kind of questions after this wonderful talk. Yeah, are there any questions from the audience to the speaker?
I had one small question, and I apologize. My signal was bad for quite a lot of the session, so I apologize if it's been asked. But the books and the CDs, the media, I know in your paper you said you kind of thought of them as a different category, but I've bought from Amazon in the US in those categories, and for some reason I always thought the reason for that was perhaps the publisher wanted to have a certain price shown up, and I was wondering if the third-party sellers were perhaps selling it in a way that the publisher didn't like or something. So I don't know whether you have an answer to that or not.
That's a great question. So at some point the publishers changed their contracts. There was a big antitrust case about this because the publishers wanted control over the price in their contract with Amazon. And so a lot of them moved from, they sell to Amazon at price P and Amazon can charge the price they want, to they control the price that Amazon retail sells at. On the other hand, I don't think those would be binding for third parties on the platform. So that said, so I think, to my knowledge at least, I think the retailers can control depending on what their contracts look like, they can control the price that Amazon retail charges. But I don't, it would depend on where the third parties were getting the books, and I don't think they would have any control over that. I mean, you can imagine what might be happening in some of these is that there's a third-party bookseller that buys a book at a discount somewhere and then is reselling on Amazon. But if the publishers have, I don't think the publishers have control over the algorithm, at least not to my knowledge, but it is possible.
Yeah, well, it just seemed like it was more of a conscious choice to only list the self-sold ones rather than algorithm deciding every time. But so that was kind of my question. But okay, thank you for that.
No, it's something I should look into, because there've been papers looking at what happened when the model changed from Amazon determining the price to the third parties determining the price. But I haven't seen anything about how that affected the third party sellers.
Okay.
Yeah, I think are there any other questions? Maybe last question. Oh yeah, if there's no, maybe we can wrap it up. Yeah, thank you very much again to the speaker, the Dr. Raval. It was a wonderful talk. And also thanks to the audience for participation. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.